So, all right. Welcome to the Data Platform Geeks webinar. This is the second webinar in this month. We have successfully done 22 webinars last month. Thank you for everyone for attending, and thanks to all our speakers who have made this a grand success. And we continue these webinars to at least a week going forward. Today's webinar is on Never Say Hacking SQL Server Again by Melancia. Before we start the webinar, I'll just quickly go through a few slides. Quick intro about Data Platform Geeks. It's a subsidiary of eDomino Solutions, who also has companies like SQLMaestros and Peopleware India. They specialize in training, so please do visit the sites and get more insights. If you are part of Data Platform Geeks, you would be already aware that the Data Platform Summit 2018 has been announced. This is the 4th year of this conference. This is happening in August. From 9th to 11th is the 3-day general conference, and the 7th and 8th, 2 days before the conference, are the pre-conference full-day training. This is happening in Hotel Radisson Blu, which is formerly Hotel Park Plaza in Bangalore. It's a pure learning event on data analytics, AI, and open source. The 2 pre-conference day trainings will be particularly concentrated on a particular topic. These are paid trainings. There are 7 tracks, more than 100 sessions with more than 50 speakers traveling from all around the world. So we have the data group product team members flying from Redmond. We have worldwide experts like MVPs, MCMs, and industry experts who will be speaking at this conference. So this will be a wonderful opportunity to learn from them as well as network with them. Let me quickly introduce you to the core team behind the Data Platform Geeks. Amit Bansal is the founder and president. Myself, I'm the vice president. I'm Manohar Puna. We have Avnish Panchal, Prince Rastogi, Sandeep Pani, Yogeshwar Phul, and Surbhi Agarwal, who are regional mentors, editors, and also the core, the backbone behind this core and part of the core team. And they are actually the people behind the community and help us building Data Platform Geeks. Also, eDomino teams, which help us in organizing these events. A quick thank you to Microsoft. They have been a great support since we started this community. About the dataplatformgeeks.com, if you are already registered, if you are attending this webinar, you would have already registered at dataplatformgeeks.com. But if you haven't got a chance to explore, please do go and explore, because there's a lot of learning content available there, and everything is free on this site. Like we have blogs, free videos, labs, magazines, like the hands-on labs that you can go and have a personal experience, learn from it, and also be part of the Facebook and LinkedIn groups where you can post your questions, or if you are interested, you can actually answer some questions. So this is one of the largest SQL groups on Facebook. And now I quickly hand over to Andre. He'll be delivering a very beautiful topic about security on SQL Server. Over to you, Andre.
Okay, so hi. Let me just set up my screen. Okay, desktop, share screen. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, all good. And we can also see your video. That's perfect.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. Let me know if there is a problem with the sound. I'll actually change it. At the same time, if you have any questions, let me know, because I really want to take questions as soon as they come along. That's actually really important, instead of just getting the questions in the end. Okay, so let's go into this. So this session is actually called Never Stay Hacking SQL Server Again. And you probably remember that last year in August, I was there in India presenting Hacking SQL Server. And this was a session that I did throughout last year mostly. And I did videos like Group Buy and all, quite a few others, and a few sessions with Hacking SQL Server. And the problem is you get too many demos, so you can't have just a 1-hour session with all this information. So I decided to create a second presentation, which is called Never Say Hacking SQL Server Again, with a few other contents as well. So every time I present this, I now have to choose between 2 or more hours of content, and I have to squeeze it to a 1-hour length, which is very sad to me, because I really want to present it all. It's really fun for me to present these things, but there's always a limited amount of time. So what I'm going to show you today, I'll actually avoid some of the things I presented before, but I will show you some new stuff, and at the same time I will show you a bit more in depth of some of the things I've shown you before. Okay, so my name is Melancia. I come from Portugal, and if you need to contact me, my website is andy.vt. Just go there, you have all my contacts. There's also a link to some of my contents, which is a bit out of date, but hopefully in the next few days I will be able to update all of the missing sessions there. And if you see a session which is more recent than this one, just take that one, because I do try to keep all the demos and all of the things, all the slides that I do throughout all of the sessions. Even if I don't present content about them, I will still keep all the demos from previous sessions in the pack as well. Okay, so hopefully let's get started if everything's okay. And this is my classic hello slides, which if you've been to one of my 1 or 2 hacking sessions, I usually mention this. I don't do hacking sessions, I do security sessions, because if I do a hacking session, that means you are a criminal and you go to jail. So these are all security sessions, perfectly normal, perfectly legal. And the thing I want to mention is SQL Server and all Microsoft software and all software from everyone else is usually perfect. The problem is it actually has people configuring it, so that means it has flaws. So if this was all done by computers, this would be great. But since we are the ones configuring it, we're going to have some security problems that take from this. And in the case of SQL Server, it's actually a really nice product. It is very safe, very secure, as long as you configure it correctly, which most people don't. So let's, I will show you some examples on how, on a few things you shouldn't do. And hopefully if you want to have a look at my previous session, just go to maybe group by, you actually have that session there as well. And these are a few other examples as well of how you should not use SQL Server. Also, I will give you examples on how to correct those things as well. So you probably still have 1 or 2 of these there. Whenever I go to the UK or in other places where these sockets exist, every time I need power, I have European sockets, which are actually very simple sockets. And every time I go there, I have to hack them. That means I have to shove that stick in the earth hole, and from that point on, that actually unlocks the rest of the 2 holes. So that is technically hacking. And I did that the same when I went there to India, because you have holes in different sizes. Apparently there are some sockets with different sizes. So I decided to bring this from home. I decided to bring a universal connector, which actually connected it, whether it is just 17 millimeters or whatever size you had. This was not good to take to the airport, because you had the black wire and the red wire, and people at the airport were very suspicious about this. But still, I got there, so it was actually quite fun to be there last year. Okay, so let's move on. A few of the demos, you will have all these demos available at my website. Some of them are already there. Some of them are, 1 or 2 of them is actually new, so they will not be there currently, but they will be there in the next few hours or maybe a day or so. So for most of them, you will need SQL Server 2016 or 2017. That's basically because you have row-level security and dynamic data masking, and those are only available from 2016 on. You also need Visual Studio, but most recent versions of Visual Studio are quite okay. So let's start with one demo. And please let me know if you have a problem with the screen. Hopefully this works. Okay, so one of the things that I've seen a lot is people all over actually have a lot of stored procedures. They have a lot of views, and they decide to take those views and encrypt them. That actually means that a lot of companies I've seen do that, and then they put the information into their clients, hoping that people are able to. Oh, wait a minute! I have a chat from you guys. Okay, okay. Voice is a little disturbed. Okay, so let's. In which sense? Okay, let's. Oh wait, I think that's okay. Okay, so it's not me just waking up right now. Okay, hopefully this will be better in over time. Okay, okay. So no, this is not a problem with the voice. This is just me just waking up. This is not a problem with the voice. Okay, so here's the thing. A lot of companies put these kinds of things in clients, and hopefully they assume that if you encrypt them, they will not be able to see them, but that's just wrong, because whenever I have to go to those clients and have a look at the contents, there are ways to get around it. So let's just have a look. Okay, so I'm actually using this database, and I'm just going to drop any procedure which I might have created for this demo, which sometimes doesn't work, which is okay. And let's actually create a few procedures. So first of all, I'm going to create a simple procedure. It has one parameter, but that's okay. I'm going to execute that, which still okay. And if you have a look at the help texts for this, you actually see the entire script to create the procedure. So this is perfectly normal. However, if you create a procedure that says with encryption, and have a look at these things here, these arrow things here, which you're going to see in a different way later on. So I'm actually going to create this. And this one says with encryption. So let's have a look at this. And it gets the encrypted one. But if I try to see the help text for this, I actually get nothing. It says encrypted. So expected behavior, and you would expect to be perfectly safe, but it is not. And I'll explain to you why. So let's just create a view the same way. So I'm going to create a view, two fields, and something like that. Get the outputs, plain text, so nothing here. But if you get the help texts, you will actually be able to see the view itself. So perfectly normal plain text. Let's have a look. If you create a view that's encrypted. So again, you have all the arrows here, which we're going to use later on. And this one should be encrypted. And if I have a look at that, this one should be the encrypted one. And if I go to help texts, well, that's completely encrypted as well. So the problem with this, you can do this with functions and triggers as well. The problem with this is a lot of people have hacked this, and it is actually quite easy, because this is basically a simple key that you use to XOR all this, because SQL Server doesn't need to unencrypt this to generate this every time. So you will need to get this encrypted, and it is actually easy. There are quite a few scripts online to do XOR on this, and you also have a different kind of way to do these things. that Paul White actually came up with. So a lot of different ways. But the easiest way is to actually use one of these tools, and DevArt actually has one of these tools. A lot of people have them, by the way, but DevArt actually has one of these tools, which is really nice. So let's connect here, and this tool is completely free. Otherwise, I would not be advertising it. And let's go here into the procedures and into the views. Okay, so you have here encrypted, and if you right-click and show DDL scripts, the DDL script is here. Although it says with encryption and it is encrypted, this tool actually encrypts all the content. And if you go here to the views, and if you say show DDL script, it is exactly the same thing. So you are able to see them. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do the crypt in place, which is, if you try this now, this doesn't work. It says it's encrypted. But now let me just right-click and say decrypt wizards. And then you have an option that says decrypt in place, which I'm going to use, and I'm going to decrypt both of these. So execute. And if I go back to this and execute this again, you actually have the two scripts to unencrypt this. So with a small difference, which is before you actually saw this arrow thing here saying with encryption, but now you only see, you remove the with encryption texts and you just see the arrow part with the comments. So that means that they actually removed that. And it makes sense because this is now unencrypted. So we had to delete this content and actually recreate them. So you actually have this unencrypted. So if you think this is a good solution to hide your secrets, guess again, it is definitely not. This is not new, by the way. This is something that exists since maybe 2008, and people have been hacking this all over the last maybe 10 years. So it is quite possible. Everyone knows it exists. It is not going to be a secret. So be careful. If you put secret stuff in there, people are going to see it. Okay, so let's move on to another demo. Okay. And please let me know if you have any questions at any time. Okay, so this one you might have seen before, but still interesting. And this one is hacking temporary tables. This is not hacking TempDB, by the way. That doesn't exist. This is hack temporary tables. So what I'm actually going to do is, again, I'm going to clean up a lot of things that might or might not exist. And this is normal. And then I'm going to create a few users, which we're going to use on some of these demos. And these users are from the James Bond films. So these are all of the actors that play James Bond. And then you have the M actor, which is the boss, which is the woman boss. And you, which is the guy that actually has no access whatsoever to anything except the gadgets. Okay. So let's create these users, and remember these users are created without login, so they're only available in that specific DataPlatformGeeks database, and we'll see what consequences it has later on in terms of security. So we'll have a look in terms of security, what consequences it has later on. Okay, so let's create a table, and this table. This table is actually one that I've been using in most of my demos throughout the last year and a half. And you have all the James Bond films, and I'm going to create that and then just select. So later on, we'll see that we have 26 total videos, total films. So film ID, which is sequential, just chronological. The title, the year, so you have quite a few years. Which Bond actor played James Bond, and you also have an agent, which is the same, but I'm going to match that with the ones I created here, with these users I created here. Then you have a payment column, which I'm not going to use today, but that's for different demos. So as I mentioned, these are used for multiple demos. Okay, so a few people have done this before. I experimented this with Miguel Oliveira, and we came up with this kind of demo. But Paul White and Paul Randall actually added a few of these things as well, played around with these. I'm actually going to use this my way and Miguel Oliveira's way. So first thing, I'm going to select the public. You should never do that. That is just the wrong way to do things. But this is just a demo, so don't do this ever. But again, I'm going to do some wrong things over this session, and then I'm going to show you where you can find all the wrong things I've done. So hopefully this will show up later on. So I'm going to select the public, and then I'm going to execute this part of the script, but on a different connection. So you have here a connection here. You have a connection here. Both of them are pretty similar. One says Sean Connery, the other one says Roger Moore, and that's about it. And I'm going to use this. So I'm going to run all of this. So exactly what I'm doing here is I'm going to execute this as Sean Connery just to be a different user. I'm going to run this in a different connection. This is actually necessary for the temporary tables to be different. The different user is not very important. And then I'm going to get the 26 rows, total 26 rows, and I'm going to get them into the hack table. So this is a temporary table which I called hack table. And I'm going to do the same with this one as well. And I'm going to run this as getting only the information from Roger Moore. So the first one has 26 records. This one has 7 records. And we're going to use that. So if you are in this connection, and I have reverted to the original DBO user, and if you are here, you are able to see this, because you see a table that has 7 records. If you are here, you are able to see a table that has 26 records, because it is a different connection. However, if you go back to the original script, and if you try to run this as well, same code, you will actually say that there is no object like this. Okay, so that means that those objects, which are the temporary tables, are only available in those specific connections in where they were created. That is okay, that is expected behavior, no problem. But let's actually have a look at some of these. Like you have Q, so the user Q has no permissions whatsoever, except the usual public permissions. So let's use them to actually have a look at sysobjects and find objects that say something like hack, syspartitions for the exact same thing, and sysallcolumns for the exact same thing. So let's have a look at the results. And remember, this is a user that has no permissions whatsoever. And the things you find is you actually have 2 hack tables, so you are not able to see this. And remember, by the way, this is actually a user that exists in the DataPlatformGeeks database, not in the TempDB. But he actually went into the TempDB. He had a look at the TempDB. So anyone from any database whatsoever, doesn't really have to be your database, from any database whatsoever, is able to see that you have 2 hack tables. And the number here, as you might guess, it is sequential since the start of SQL Server. And I've created quite a few already, not that many. I just restarted SQL Server yesterday. And basically you have 2 IDs here. These are the object IDs. These 2 are the object IDs, which is okay. And I'm going to get these 2 object IDs, and I'm going to use them here. So you only have 26 rows in one and 7 rows in the other one, so only 1 partition each. But at the same time, you get the Q user, which has no permissions whatsoever, to actually detect all of these rows and all of these in both of these tables. You was not supposed to know that these tables have this kind of contents. And as well, you are able to see the all columns thing and see that this table here exists with this characteristics, so these fields, and they have length of fields and all of this. And the second one, which is down here as well, you have the exact same, the exact same structure, but still, a person that has no permissions whatsoever is able to see this. This is bad, obviously. So how do you solve this problem? So one of the easiest things to do is you should go to TempDB. You should also go to every other table and remove permissions from sysobjects. And this actually does not work because Q does not have permissions to access this. Typically, public has permissions to access this, so you should remove these permissions from public, from sysobjects, from syspartitions, from sysall columns, and a few others as well. So you should have a look at which system views there are permissions to public, and just remove them. And just if you are a sysadmin, you will still have access to those. Just remove those permissions. Okay, so I'm not going to do that now because I will need those for later demos. But let's just go back to this, and so far so good. I've actually been able to see some of the contents and what kind of size they have and what kind of rows they have, what kind they have actually. But I would like to see the contents themselves. So for that, I need a bit more permission, so I have to be a sysadmin. But I'm actually going to create a table which just gathers information. I'm not going to go a lot into that at the moment, but I will show you that in a second. And then I'm actually going to take this, and basically the whole point of this is to select from here. I actually select one of these two tables. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm just going to have a look at one of them, not the two, just one of them. And then I'm going to execute dbcc int, which is technically undocumented, but have a look at Paul Randall's blog post that I mentioned on top, and just have a look at that, and he will actually explain all the parameters that are available for all of these as well. Okay, so this is what I got. So first of all, I selected this table. I have no clue which one it is, doesn't really matter, just one of them. And you have basically 3 pages. And the 2 first ones are really not interesting. I really don't care about them, but I do care about this last page, which actually has information. And you can't see it here, so I really need to see the actual contents of these pages. So to do that, I'm going to do the next part of this. So this is the magic trace flag that I need to execute. And I'm not going to get a lot into this, but this is magical. And I'm going to get the information. So I'm going to open a cursor to see all of the 3 rows that we talked about. And I'm going to call the dbcc page on all of the 3 rows that I got. If this was 10 rows or more, I would actually be able to see 10 rows or more from the output. So this is the BCC page 3 times in this case, and I'm going to run it. So this is the results. Okay, so the first one is not very interesting. I'm not even going to go into that. But remember, if you try this on a different table, the results might technically be different. I know from this demo, and I tried this on my computer just yesterday, so I'm pretty sure it's the 3rd one. But if you try this on your computer, the results might be different. So do have a look at all of the pages that you come up with. Okay, so header stuff doesn't really matter. Weird stuff doesn't really matter. And let's have a look at this. Okay, so this is interesting. You can see that Sean Connery is written here. So Sean Connery again. So wait, this seems interesting, but at the same time, this is a memory dump of the contents. Doesn't really help me a lot because I need to, decrypt it. I need to see what kind of columns these are. And the way to do this is actually to just go down, because he does that for us already. And if you have a look at this, this is actually the results. So this is the first record of the table. And you actually have Dr. Nose, 1962, the bond actor, you have the agent, you have the payment part, and this one actually is a part of the example which I generated the table. So this is the first one. And then you go down here and you have the second one. Oh, okay, you have the second one. And then you have the third one here as well. So you have the third one here as well, and so on. So you have quite a few of these. View to a kill, which is one of the last ones. Actually not, you have 26. So you have a lot of this. So by this time, you are able to see the content. So if you are planning to use temporary tables to contents from everyone because you assume that they're not going to be seen. As long as they go into TempDB, and that's pretty much every table, they will be seen by everyone. So this is actually a problem. So think twice actually using temp tables to process a lot of confidential information. That might not be a good idea. Okay, let's actually go back and let's talk about a bit about some of the other features which are available in SQL Server 2016 and 2017. So some of these, the ones in green, are only available, a small cut here because of the screen, but some of these are only available in Service Pack 1 for free. All the rest of the other ones are available, but on the Enterprise Edition only, and also on the Developer Edition as well, but you can't use that for production. So if these are all free, and many of these are in the Express Edition as well, that means that people are bound to use them. And if you are bound to use them, which is perfectly okay, you at least have to know the limitations in terms of security and how you can hack them, and again, how you can solve the hacking problem as well. So let's have a look at a few of these, like dynamic data masking and row-level security, which are actually quite nice. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but dynamic data masking is not a security feature. This is definitely not a security feature. This is a really nice a feature to help you out, hide some information, but there are workarounds for this. You can hack them very easily. So these are only available for small things in environments where you have no actual need for security. Okay, so the green stuff that you see here is actually the dynamic data masking part, in which you select row by row, column by column, and you decide what kind of masking you want to have. This is just an exaggerated example. Basically, you have the first one, which is a partial function, shows the first character, that's number 1 here. It's the last character, so 0 characters in the end, and the middle characters are actually the string which I did and define. And then you have the default one, which is basically 4 X's. It's always the same thing. You have the email one, which is basically a generic email, which is still valid for validation purposes. If you have an email validator, still valid, but technically hides all your information. So why would this be useful? Well, if you want to have stuff in production, which is obviously valid, and if you have stuff in a test environment, you might want to use dynamic data masking to actually mask the contents from the original server and just send them to the test server if you want to. That's one of the possibilities you are actually able to use. You can use this to mask a lot of information like credit card numbers or phone numbers like here and all that. But again, if you are a user that has access to do things to the database, so doing queries directly on the database, you will not be safe because these are hackable. So I will show you how to hack this. But let me just mention that, first of all, this is by column. So you select this by column. There is one permission called the unmask permission, which if you use that, that actually shows you all the things. So you need the select permission plus the unmask permission. Problem is the unmask permission is not by column, which you would expect. It's not by table, which you might also expect. It is actually by database. So you can really be sure that if you are using the unmask, it's either everything in the database or nothing in the database, which kind of defeats the security purpose, right? It doesn't really make any sense. So basically, I use this to do staging of information. Just copy information to test environments, which is actually nice, but I don't use this for anything else. You might find different usages for this, which is perfectly okay, but don't use this for actual security purposes because this is hackable, and I'll show you why. And again, if you try to do backups, if you try to copy this table using select into or insert into, you will have the output masked with all X's unless you have that unmask permission. So let's have a look at how to hack this thing. And this is actually quite easy. So dynamic data masking. Okay, so this is the one. So same table all over again. So same James Bond table, and execute. And here we go. This is normal, by the way. I'm just cleaning up stuff that doesn't need to be cleaned up. Perfectly normal. And you have the table here, which is okay. So now I'm going to create an agents table, and this agents table is actually going to be just a grouping of all the agents, the actors that you have there. This is just for us to use later on in hacking dynamic data masking. I need that to actually have a prediction on what the information is in those, to do one of the hacking parts, not the only one. Okay, so I'm going to mask the bond actor column. So you remember the bond actor column, which is one that has the full name, but I'm going to do that in the other table. And I'm going to mask it with one that shows you the first two characters, the last character, and in the middle you have all the dots here, not the X's. X's are ugly, you have dots. So I'm going to do that. So this should be okay. And then I'm going to grant select to public. Don't do that ever, okay? So you should never do that. And I'm going to grant the unmask permission to M. So this is the unmask on all database, because you can't refine it to a single table, at least not yet. Okay, and then I'm going to have a look at the content. So sysadmin, you have all the information here, which is normal. If you are the M user, which has the unmask permission, you can also see that, which is also normal. And if you are Sean Connery, you don't get to see that, because you only see the stuff that's masked. So again, let's have a look at the mask again. So two characters first, all the dots, and then the one last character, which you see. You can actually guess which values these are, especially because in the next column you have the name again. But this is not part of the demo, by the way. This is just for our reference at this point. Okay, so first of all, let's turn on the show plan to public, and that means that I'm going to see the actual execution plan, and everyone is going to be able to see it, and especially these users like Sean Connery are going to be able to see it, which in a normal situation they would not be. Again, never do this in a production environment. It is okay to try this in a test environment, no problem. I do it occasionally, do this occasionally on a test environment, should be fine, but never in a production environment. No one should have show plan in a production environment unless you are the database administrator itself, which basically means that if you have show plan, you are able to exploit stuff from that, because you are able to see the things that SQL might go wrong, and actually adjust your query to screw it up. So you should never be able to see that. Okay, so let's do Control M to actually get the show plan running, which is this one, and let's have a look at the first hack. So the first hack is I'm actually going to ask Roger, bond actor like Roger, and if you remember the dots thing, this should not happen, because all of these three letters should not exist in the result, which I should be able to query. But let's execute this anyway, and I'm actually able to see, Sean Connery is actually able to see his competition, and he is actually able to see that, which should be wrong. But why does this happen? Let's have a look at the execution plan and see. So first of all, you start here, clustered index scan, which is okay. It's expected. It's a small table, and then you have the Roger just down there in the predicates. I can't show you with the mouse, but it's there. And then you have compute scalar, which is basically for this string here. And then you have this last compute scalar, which is basically to do the dynamic data masking. So the problem is you already selected records before you did the masking. And that is the big problem with dynamic data masking. It's because the dynamic data masking happens just before the selects. That is the big problem. So far you are able to hack this. You see the information. But I want to see all of the information. I want to see who they actually are. So for that, I have that table. And this could be all of the actors in the world. You just get a list. The list is it exists somewhere on the internet. You would just get a list and find out who they were. So I'm going to do an inner join on the other table, which I put for the agents table, and you have bond actor equals to bond actor. So let's execute this. And the result is the bond actor column is still empty, but the one from the other table, which actually matched together, is actually showing all the correct information here. So you are able to hack it if you have this. So if you have numbers like from 1 to 1,000,000, just get a table from 1 to 1,000,000, join them together, and you will be able to see the results. If you have dates, just get all the possible dates from January 1st, 1900 to the current date, or even in the future, and join them together. You will see all of them. That works pretty well, except for the strings, because strings are completely random. These were actually quite predictable, but most strings are completely random. So let's have a look at how we can see this. So I had a talk with Dmitry a few years ago, and he actually showed me a way to do this using letters one by one, and he actually has a much better solution than I do with all the Unicode characters, but mine is actually quite simple. It's just characters from A through Z plus the space, so it is simple, and these are all the letters, so letters from A through Z. And then I'm going to execute something crazy, which is this. So I'm going to get all possible letters, but I'm going to inner join one letter at a time. So from the bond actor column, I'm going to join one letter at a time. So character 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 14, which is the limit on my demo size. I don't need any more. So you can have 1,000 if you wanted to. Okay, so this is the results. So you have Sean Connery here, have George Lazenby, which is the biggest one. You have Roger Moore down here, Timothy Dalton, fun guy, Pierce Brosnan, and a really guy, like the worst guy ever. Okay, so you have all the information here. So all you have to do is concatenate all this information, and you get the information. And execution plan, really scary stuff. Okay, so really scary stuff. Can't even show you in a decent size. And just to show you why this wouldn't work, because remember, you are actually the compute scholar here is actually the masking part. It's actually at the very end. So that is the reason this is hackable. But if you do this at the select level, and let's try this at the select level, you are not able to see it, because the execution plan, you actually have this compute scholar. I'm not sure which one it is. One of these actually does the dynamic data masking, and then you have the select. So you are joining things on the after the dynamic data masking. It does not work. So he actually knows about this, and he figures out he's being hacked. So he actually cancels the values which are available, because he knows this. So he cancels those values. Okay, so this is dynamic data masking, and well, let's actually have a look at a different one, which is, oh, by the way, this is me in Bulgaria, a hotel called Hotel 007, and I found this really fun. I was presenting a session, I decided to stay there. Not a really good hotel, it's still in the 60s in terms of, how it looks, but still very fun, because you actually have a really nice hotel room key. Okay, so this is actually a fun fact. Okay, Bulgaria, by the way, Sofia in Bulgaria. Okay, so you have row level security. So let's have a look at row level security. And row level security is actually very nice. I do recommend that you use it, although it has some problems. So let's see the problems it has. Okay, so let's create the tables again. And tables are here, perfect, no problem. Let's have a look at the things. Okay, so to actually show you row level security, I'm going to create a view, which basically is select star, but you should never use select star. There are quite a few reasons for that, both in terms of optimization. Just ask Brent Ozar, and he will tell you it's just wrong. But from a security point of view, it's also wrong. So I actually have a session called SQL Curiosities. And my SQL Curiosities actually has a way to show you how you can be completely insecure if you use a select star, that just goes wrong drastically in a view. Okay, so let's create a view where you have a where that says if you are the agent where you correspond to your username. So if you are username Sean Connery, you are only able to see the films from Sean Connery. If you are Roger Moore, only from Roger Moore. So let's have a look at this and create one of these. Okay, so and then grant selects on that view to everyone, which is wrong. You should never do that. But again, lazy. This is going to be useful later on, don't worry. Okay, so let's have a look at the results. So if I'm executing this as M, oh, by the way, M is actually able to see there's an OR, so M is able to see all of it. So this is the rule that I defined. Okay, so if you are M, you get to see everything, 26 rows down here, which is important. If you are Sean Connery, you get to see 7 rows, his own. If you are Roger Moore, you get to see 7 again, but from Roger Moore. And Q, you are able to see 0 because he's not the main actor in any film. Okay, let's try this with role level security. Again, never do this. You just create a role for this. You should never grant permissions to each individual person. But I did this deliberately, so I'll show you this in a different tool later on. Okay, so let's create this. And first of all, you need to create something that's a schema. This is a normal schema. They do recommend this one, and I'm going to create one. And then I'm going to create a function which looks pretty much the same as the other one. And it returns a record if this is valid. It returns no records if it's not. And it receives an agent parameter. So I'm going to create this one. Exactly the same where clause as you've seen in view. So I'm going to create a security policy now to associate that function with the table itself. And this is the bond films table, state equals to 1, which is important. And this is a security policy called whatever. And it has a filter predicates, which is that function before. And you actually assign it the agent column that you see there to that parameter. So I'm going to run this. So by this time, if you have a look at this is just for your reference only. This will actually be on, so is enabled equals to 1, which is important. And filter predicates, that actually means that this is the same as getting that on a view. If you have the block predicates, the block type, if you use block instead of filter, you actually get the same as you would get in a view with the with check option. Okay, so if you try to change things in a view, or in this case in this one, in the row level security one, which later on you will not be able to see using that row level security or that view, that actually blocks that rolls back the information. So that is blocked, and that is the same as the view with check option. Okay, so same thing, but we'll just use filter for now. No, I'm not going to get into a lot of this. So let's try this the same thing again, but this time on the bond films. Okay, directly, not the view, but the bond films themselves. So if you are M, you see 26 rows, which is expected. You are able to see everything. And if you are Sean Connery, guess what? This table, you only see 7 rows in this table, which should not be normal. But from Sean's point of view, you only see 7 records in the table, so he just assumes that's the size of the table. If you are Roger Moore, you only see 7 records again. And if you are Q, you assume that the table is empty, which in either case is always wrong. Okay, so this is actually a very good security feature to use for multiple things. I do recommend that you use it. Just have a look at the small problem that it has. So, but I do recommend that you use it, by the way. So let's have a look at how you can hack these things. So one of the things you've seen before in the temp tables demo. So let's actually turn this off and execute this as Q again. So these system views, you will actually see this as off. But if you are Q and that is off, you see the whole thing as well. So no problem. Okay. But let's turn it on and try a hack. So this hack actually tells me I'm going to turn this on, and Q wants to make sure that he's being deceived or not. So he goes to sys partitions and sees the 26 rows. You've seen this in the previous temp tables demo. So what you should do is, you should go to the sys partitions and, protect that table. Do not allow public to see that table. So that's one of the first things you should really do. And let's have a look at some of the other hacks. So this is technically not a hack. This is just a way to figure out that you are being deceived. So this hack is actually much more interesting. And this was corrected, by the way. This doesn't exist anymore, but still important to show you. So I'm gonna run this. So if I do film year minus 1969, there will come a result, which is In Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a really nice film where James Bond gets married and all that. Right here, close to where I live, by the way. And in that one in 1969, if you have this result, that actually says that it's 1 divided by 0, and that means that you have a message saying divide by 0 error. And that's the basis of the hack. However, nowadays, this has actually been fixed in SQL Server 2016 in one of the CTPs before it actually went public. So this was fixed. So you have no messages whatsoever and no result whatsoever, which is the expected behavior. So this is perfect. And the reason that was a hack before is because they actually, the way they optimized row-level security was done in a wrong way. But still, they haven't really perfected this because there is still a hack. And one of the hacks is, if you execute this and do something like this, where something equals to 1 divided by a division by 0 error, in a where clause, you actually get 0 results, which is also expected. So in terms of security, this is okay. But you receive a message saying that there is a division by 0 error. That basically means that in at least one of the records, you have a film year that's equal to 1969, and that is terrible. Okay, so I actually hacked something. So let's have a look at some of these. And I actually created a tool when I was in Portland, right after Scott Hanselman fixed my computer, which is, thank you very much. Otherwise, I can really create that tool. I would not have enough time for that. So I created a really nice tool, which I'm going to show you now. And this tool will not be available for you to download, sadly, until Microsoft actually fixes this problem. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you the source code for this tool. But later on, if they fix it, I will show you this tool as well. So let's connect to DataPlatformGeeks as a database. Have a look at the Bond films table. This is the primary key, and I'm going to execute this as Sean Connery. So I'm going to load this as Sean Connery. So if you have a look at this partitions, you have 26 rows, so he knows he's being deceived. You only see 7, so it is okay. And you know the structure of the table, which you should, because you have select permissions. So this is normal, don't worry about it. So first of all, I'm going to try, oh, by the way, these are all the queries that I execute. So they are listed here, they are counted here. And the one in red is the number of queries that actually return division by 0 error. And if there is a division by 0 error, I detect it, that means that I hacked something. So we know there are 26 rows, so to find out which IDs are assigned to the 26 rows, in theory, we have to hack them 26 times. So film ID minus 1, film ID minus 2, and see if they do a division by 0. So I'm going to try minimum 0, maximum 50 to try it. And these are all of the IDs that I know are valid. So he tried, this was actually quite quick, but he tried all the way up to 50. He didn't find them, so these are okay. So let's try this with film year. So let's try to get all of the integers from here, but the integers are from 1960 to this, otherwise this would take a long time. So I did this deliberately, so get integers. So he's actually doing the division by 0 thing, and you can see the values here in the reds box. You see that so far, when you finish this, you have 52 hacks, division by 0. That means it's 26 plus 26. So that is correct. So this is all very nice, and I can do this to all integers and all, if I had all the dates, which would actually be easy to do. But with strings, it's a little more difficult. So how do you do that with strings? Well, the same way you did that with dynamic data masking. So you do that 1 character at a time. So let's try to get the strings. So you go 1 character at a time. You start with character 32. You end with character 127, which is the configuration that I set here. And you specify a maximum length of 33 so that this doesn't run over too long. And basically, I'm actually getting all of the possible characters in here. So he's actually detecting all of the characters to figure out the result. So simple enough. Okay, and this will basically go on forever. I'm not going to get a lot into this, but this would actually go on forever. Okay, so let's go back on this. And before I actually continue, I want to show you a different tool, which is also available in Azure as well. So it is the vulnerability assessment tool. And let's have a look at this. So you have you go here to the database, you say tasks, and you say vulnerability assessment, and you say scan for vulnerabilities. I'm just going to say okay. This takes a while, by the way. Getting back to this, he's all the way down here. So I'm just going to stop this, by the way, because this is actually using up a lot of my CPU. And okay, let's go back to this. So he's actually analyzing this. And the thing you see here is 44 have passed and 8 have failed. So 8 have failed. Let's ignore the first one. Excessive permissions should not be granted to the public role. Okay, that means let's go down here, and he actually has a rule query. And let's open that query in the query editor and execute that. So you can actually execute these queries that he actually uses to detect things. And remember, I added show plan. He doesn't like it because he says these kind of database-wide permissions should not really exist. And I have a database permission for DataPlatformGeeks saying show plan. Wrong. You should never do that. But again, it is listed here, so it is okay. So orphaned users should be removed from SQL Server. Remember, I created 6 or 7 users, and you can actually see them. So the actual results is some of these that you know already, and you can actually open that in the query window. I'm sorry, this is actually quite small, but still small resolution. Okay, and you see these should not be here because they are orphan users. They do not have a SQL Server login on top. They only have access to that specific database. They are orphan users in that database. And one of the things that you see here in the ends, if you have a look, I'm not sure if I can remove this. I can't. Okay, smaller. Okay. If you go here, you actually see the results, which is okay. And then you see a remediation which says drop user. So this is the remediation. You can actually open this in a query window if you want to, and actually run this if you want to. Let's not do that now. Okay, so this is the workaround. So you have quite a few others, like transparent data encryption should be enabled. Do have a look at my previous session from maybe Group Buy or the one I did in India as well. I do talk a lot about this. And permission to select from system table should be revoked. So some of these are the ones you already know, but a lot more besides these ones. So this one, you see, this one is actually interesting. So I have select permission. You remember I did the select permission on all of these users, individual users. I did a select permission on all of them individually instead of just using role. So the recommendation is use a role. Forget about this, revoke the permissions, and use a role which is better. So excessive permissions granted to public, and you have at least this one, view bond films, which you should not have. So another one. Data permissions should not be granted directly to principals. So you have select to bond films for Daniel, David, George, and all of this. So okay, let's imagine that some of these were actually valid. And these, I decided, no, I need this for my application. So one of the things you can do is you can just say here that you approve that baseline. And you say that's okay. And if you say that's okay, the next time you run this, that will actually pass that result. So I'm not going to do that. That takes a long time. We're almost out of time for this session. But if you say approve as a baseline, that says it is okay for the next time. You just ignore that specific problem the way it is, as you've seen it, exactly as you've seen it. So that is a good thing. You can also do this in a SQL database in Azure. We don't have a lot of time to actually show you that, but do have a look because they have a lot of more rules in a SQL database in Azure as well. Some of them are similar, but you have a few more. Have a look, create a SQL database in Azure. Just go to one of the options which says vulnerability assessment, and you get to play around with that as well. One other thing which doesn't really work in Management Studio at the moment, it's actually quite, incomplete, which is the classified data option here, which in Azure, you actually have it next to the vulnerability assessment on top or in the bottom. You have one of the two, but it says data classification or something like that. The name is slightly different, but the one in Azure is actually more complete, and that actually helps you with GDPR to actually map all of the sensitive columns that you have in your database. So that's actually quite a useful thing for use with the, if you need to be prepared for GDPR. So vulnerability assessment is also very nice. You should use that in terms of security. I'm just going to show you how that works, vulnerability assessment, specifically for the master database. So slightly different results, and some of them are expected, some of them are not. And you should also run that on your master database. You should run that on every database that you have, just to be sure you're okay. And I actually have failed 23, which is amazingly big. So SA logins should be disabled. That makes sense. I'm just going to show you a few. Force encryption for TBS, which is, again, from my previous demo, to actually encrypt the connection from the server, from the client to the server, so you should encrypt it. Execute permissions to a lot of things. Authentication mode should be Windows authentication, so it should not be mixed mode authentication. Unnecessary permissions should be revoked. So you have a whole lot of things. And by the way, I just installed SQL Server yesterday in this computer, so it is completely clean. My local computer, I don't optimize this because I really want to use this for demos exactly the way it is. In a normal server, I would fix all of these problems or most of these problems. Sometimes you can't fix problems like this one, which says authentication mode should only be Windows authentication, not mixed modes. But sometimes you do need that. But if you do need both of them, mixed modes and so SQL authentication and Windows authentication, you just approve this as a baseline, and the result does not show up again. So you can actually use that. Okay, so you have quite a few here. That should keep you busy for a while. And maximum number of error logs, server instance should be advertised by the browser service. Yes, all of these are true. This is actually quite low, not really much of a problem. But still, you have a few of these which are actually quite interesting. Okay, so row-level security, we talked about this. Let's mention just some of the things, some quick things. So if you are a developer, and most of the people that come to these sessions are not just DBAs, most of the times they're also developers. You probably know SQL injection already. And if you don't remember SQL injection, remember the dog with the thingy there. You will never forget it again. Okay, so this dog is actually very evil, and the thing is, if you have an example like this, if you run this example on a browser, for instance, and if you had food here, that'd be okay. So that would just add that to the category here, and that would work okay. But if you had something like this, which would actually close the quotes here and then just drop whatever table or do whatever command you wanted, like insert, or do any other things, you would be able to hack this thing. So the thing you need to do is to actually do prepared statements. They are available in most languages. So one of the things you should do, just put that parameter in here in the yellow part, and then decide what type of thing it is. If it is an integer, if it is a string, just decide what type it is, and it will actually ignore all the quotes for you. It actually put them correctly so that it doesn't escape the quoting and actually attack your SQL Server. So you should actually use prepared statements to avoid SQL injection. It is very important to use this, and this is available in most languages. This example is on .NET. So it works pretty much for C# and Visual Basic, but any other language will have something that's actually quite similar to this. Okay, so let's talk about permissions, and this is the poster I want to show you. This poster is available on somewhere on GitHub as well, but in my presentations, I usually add the PDF for all of this. So I have a PDF for 2014, 2016, and 2017. So I have a poster for each of them, and I also have, and the 2016 and 2017 also add stuff for Azure SQL database as well. So you have information for all of them. And this one, if you have permissions like select, insert, update, delete, they are here where I have the mouse. So these are the small ones. And then you have the schema level and database level, select, insert, update permissions, which are next door. And you have column level select permissions, which are here as well. So really, really small. So you're not supposed to memorize all of this, but you are supposed to know that this exists. And just have a look at this so that you are able to understand, both of these green stuff and, the green but with the orange kind of thing. These are roles, these are server roles, these are database roles, and they actually have a whole bunch of permissions assigned to them, and they have arrows. You can't really see them very well, but they do have some arrows that actually point to the permissions that these roles actually have available. So if you assign a person to a role, you know that you are assigning them all of these permissions. So
hey Andy,
we should finish?
sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, we should finish.
Okay, so we're about to finish. Okay, no worries. Let me just do the conclusions. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on. Meltdown and Spectre, basically have a look at all of the security features, all of the security updates that you have. You will be able to work with SQL Server without any issues, but do have a look at any CLR stuff that you have, for instance, in integration services and all of that. Have a look at those and make sure that they come from a legitimate source. Otherwise, you might have problems. I'm not going to go a lot into that because this would be like an hour session just talking about Meltdown and Spectre. Okay, so I am open to questions if you have any questions there.
All right. Before we take any questions, Andy, I just have a few slides that I want to cover.
Okay, so let me just show you 2 more slides, and then let's do the questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so recommendations just to close this off. So always encrypt any traffic that you have, and don't expose things to the internet. Use firewalls, use VPNs. This has actually been a lot of problems in the past. Least amount of permissions possible. That's a basis for any system, whether it is a database or anything else in terms of security. Again, we've seen prepared statements to avoid SQL injection. And updates, very important, updates as well. Just use the updates. Otherwise, you get your trousers down, which is not that good. Thank you very much. And let me know if you have any questions then. Thank you.
All right. So let me just share my screen.
Okay.
Yep. I'll just quickly walk through the full day trainings that are available at the conference this year. So we have Dimitri, who will be doing a full day session on troubleshoot and optimize for SQL Server. He's a Microsoft Certified Master from US. We have Sunil Agarwal, again, a very popular speaker, was there at previous conferences. He'll be doing a full day session on how to migrate your on-premise databases to Azure SQL DB and managed instance. Razarad, that BI expert from New Zealand, he'll be doing a full day training on Power BI from Rookie to Rockstar. Dr. Leila Atati, she's doing 2 pre-cons. She's a data scientist from New Zealand again, and also an MVP. She'll be doing leading edge data science with Microsoft tools. Andy Leonard, a world-renowned SIS expert, will be doing a full day training on Day of Intelligent Data Integration with SIS and Azure Data Factory. Madan Gajendran and his team, the Cosmos DB team, will be doing a full day Cosmos DB workshop. Again, the second pre-con by Dr. Leila Atati is building intelligent applications using the Microsoft AI platform. If you're really serious about R, this is the session for you. It's a full day training on practical R for everyone by Steph Lockie. She's a data science expert and also an MVP from UK. We have Sanjay Mishra's team, the Data Cat team, doing a full day training on how to build a scalable data architecture in Azure. Joey and Denny are coming back again this year. Joey is doing a full day training on Linux for the SQL Server DBA. Peter Myers, who has been a very popular speaker last year, is doing a 0-2 analysis services full day training. And Denny is doing a high availability and disaster recovery, SQL Server and Azure, a full day training again. Please do visit dps10.com if you need more information, and if you have any questions or if you want help talking to your manager or your company, please do reach us at contact@dps10.com. We'll be able to help you. You can also directly call us, and again, remember the dates. It's August 9th to 11th is the three-day conference, and the pre-conference training is on 7th and 8th, 2 days. Which trainings are on which days is available. And so we'll see. There are no questions in the Q&A panel, Andy. So if there are any questions for attendees, please you can post your questions on our Facebook group, or you can also send an email directly to Andy from the slides. So we have recorded this webinar, so this will be uploaded to the webinar recordings page on DataPlatformGeeks.com, so you can get the contact information of Andy from there.
Okay, so thank you very much for watching, everyone. As you mentioned, if you have any questions, Facebook is also a very nice place to interact and to answer questions. If you go to andy.pt, you have all my contacts there, and hopefully in a few hours you will have some of these demos as well. So thank you very much for having me. It's always great to talk to you again.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you for taking your time and giving the wonderful webinar today. And thanks all the attendees for taking your time and attending the webinar today. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. You too. Thank you.